The cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcome to StarScope Report. This is the deep dive where we uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and, viral influencer scandals.
Right. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
Yeah, and today you are getting a front row seat to one of the most stunning, highly classified, and frankly just heartbreaking collisions of celebrity culture we have ever seen.
It really is. It's intense.
We are unpacking the shocking new September 2026 Esquire interview where Brad Pitt admits he is no longer sober.
Yeah, that headline it stopped everyone in their tracks.
Totally. But we aren't just looking at the quotes today. We are tracing this headline back to the exact place where the public first noticed his relapse.
Which is just wild to think about.
Right. The star-studded, top-secret Madison Square Garden wedding of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. We're going inside the most heavily guarded event of the decade to really understand the psychological pressure cooker that broke a 7-year streak of sobriety.
It really is a story of two completely different extremes, like violently crashing into one another.
Yeah.
To grasp the magnitude of what happened inside that arena, we first have to understand the psychological state Brad Pitt was in, when he actually walked through those doors.
Right, because it wasn't good.
No, not at all. The Esquire interview paints this deeply complex, often very dark picture of his mental health over the last few years. He refers to this period simply as family stuff.
Right, family stuff. And while he doesn't, name names, that confession is heavily shadowed by the ongoing, incredibly public fallout of his divorce from Angelina Jolie.
Exactly.
Especially with the recent news of several of his children legally choosing to drop his last name. I mean, that has to be devastating.
Oh, beyond devastating.
Yeah.
And when you read the interview with that context in mind, the emotional weight of his quotes, it actually stops you in your tracks.
Yeah.
He openly admits to experiencing severe suicidal ideation, a feeling he says was completely foreign to him prior to this period.
Which is it's so heavy because the language he uses to describe that pain is what makes it so resonant.
Yeah, tell him what he said.
He told the reporter, the pain was so oppressive that I wasn't going to act on this, but I could feel the cold steel of the billet in my head, and it felt like relief.
Wow.
Right. He wasn't looking to end his life in a dramatic fashion. He was just viewing the concept of suicide as this purely mechanical escape hatch from oppressive, inescapable emotional pain.
It's an incredibly stark thing to hear from a man whose entire public persona for the last 30 years has been built on, charm and good looks and this effortless cool.
Yeah, the golden boy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he balances that dark confession with this intense, almost aggressive self-awareness about his own privilege. He says, listen, this shat ain't easy. And you're talking to a guy who won the lottery.
Yeah, he knows he has every resource in the world.
Right. But he's admitting that money and fame, they just cannot insulate you from profound human grief.
Which brings up this really fascinating contradiction in his personality that he explores in the piece. Pitt calls himself a congenital optimist.
Yes.
He genuinely believes things will eventually work out. But he acknowledges that the same optimism has caused him to foolishly walk head-on into a Mack truck time and time again.
Yeah, and he even shares a quote from his close friend, the director David Fincher, about this.
Oh, I love this quote.
It's so good. Fincher apparently told him, yeah, you see the glass is half full, but it's half full of urine.
Oh my God. That is such a brilliantly cynical observation from Fincher.
It really highlights the absolute exhaustion of relentless optimism,
Totally. Pitt is trying to force a positive, sunlit perspective onto a situation that is fundamentally toxic and deeply painful.
Yeah.
The sheer psychological heavy lifting required to maintain that facade every single day. That's exactly the kind of depleting environment where a relapse takes root.
Precisely. And when Pitt describes the mechanics of his relapse, it wasn't this sudden dramatic spiral.
Right.
It started with him attempting to drink in a restrained manner. He got overconfident. He told a reporter that he went, yep, nope, not good for me, not in big quantities.
Oh, so he thought he could control it.
Exactly. He essentially claimed he can have a few, but he can't have a lot, and that he just has to be professional about it now.
Be professional about drinking. It's like a CEO trying to micromanage a hurricane.
That's a great way to put it.
You can build your spreadsheets, issue directives, and try to be professional about it all day long, but nature's going to bypass your intellect entirely and destroy the building anyway. It sounds like his congenital optimism is both his superpower and his kryptonite, like driving a Ferrari with a brick on the gas pedal, but no brakes. Does this kind of extreme drive make relapse inevitable?
It absolutely does. And the clinical term for that phenomenon is actually the illusion of control.
Okay.
For people who have willed massive global careers into existence, the idea that they cannot manage a couple of glasses of wine feels like a failure of discipline.
Because they're so used to being in charge.
Right. They're used to bending the world to their will. But addiction doesn't respond to discipline, optimism, or professionalism. It responds to brain chemistry.
Wow.
So when he says he has to be professional about his drinking, he is applying a workplace mentality to a neurological disease.
Right.
And that attempt to micromanage the unmanageable is exactly what makes his physical environment on July 3rd so critical to this story.
Yes, because that private, painful struggle actually played out in the middle of the most lockdown, exclusive public spectacle of the year. You won't believe exactly where guests first noticed Brad holding a drink.
Yeah, that workplace mentality shatters the second you lose control of your environment. And on July 3rd at Madison Square Garden, Brad Pitt walked into a space designed entirely to strip guests of their control.
And if you're loving these Hollywood twists and exclusive details, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead in this deep dive.
So the environment Pitt walked into wasn't just a wedding, it was an unprecedented security operation that completely removed personal autonomy.
It was insane.
To understand why it was such a profound trigger for someone balancing on the edge of sobriety, you have to look at the sheer level of paranoia surrounding the Swift-Kelce nuptials.
Oh, the secrecy was borderline cinematic. I mean, the planning began 4 months earlier in March.
Right.
Guests received texts from an unknown number simply instructing them to block off 2 summer days. No location, no venue, just a command to wait for instructions.
This is wild.
Details were guarded like state secrets. George Kittle, Travis Kelce's NFL peer, literally asked Travis to his face if the wedding was at Madison Square Garden, and Travis just laughed and walked away.
He wouldn't even tell his own teammates.
No.
And the invitations themselves were digital, individually watermarked to trace leaks, and attached to strict non-disclosure agreements. But the logistics on the actual day of the wedding were staggering.
Yeah, at 4 a.m. on wedding day, guests received a QR code. But it didn't just give them a ticket. It came with mandatory, real-time GPS driving routes to the venue.
Just think about that.
If your hired car deviated from the route, security flagged it and you were not allowed inside.
And when you finally arrived, total blackout. Phones were confiscated.
Yes.
Smartwatches were confiscated.
Wait, I heard even the cops weren't allowed to have their phones.
Yeah. This wasn't just for the celebrities. The NYPD officers working the perimeter had their personal devices taken.
That is unbelievable.
Madison Square Garden banned its own corporate employees from entering the building, and one venue worker was reportedly fired on the spot just for trying to photograph the loading dock decor.
Fired on the spot over a loading dock.
Yep. The entire arena went dark for a week, hidden behind a 180-foot temporary tent.
Okay, so I want you to put yourself in Brad Pitt's shoes for a moment. You walk into this fortress, entirely cut off from the outside world, and the sheer density of fame in that room was completely surreal.
Oh, absolutely.
We know the specifics because ESPN announcer Joe Buck later leaked his seating chart on a podcast.
Right, which is just classic Joe Buck.
Yeah, so Buck was seated directly in front of Brad Pitt. Pitt was right next to Scarlett Johansson, seated behind Hugh Grant, and 2 rows away from Paul McCartney and Tom Hanks.
It's just a ridiculous concentration of star power.
Not to mention Joe Buck and SNL's Marcelo Hernandez, who miraculously managed to sneak a burner phone in, spending 20 minutes just casually making small talk with Tom Cruise.
A burner phone.
I know. But think about it. If you're managing a fragile sobriety, isn't an event like this basically a trigger minefield? Like, how do you stay grounded when you are trapped in a room with 1,000 of the most famous people on Earth, stripped of your phone, and surrounded by excess?
That is the ultimate trigger minefield. When you take away someone's smartphone in 2026, you aren't just taking away their camera. You are taking away their primary coping mechanism for social anxiety.
That is so true.
You remove their ability to text a sober sponsor, to distract themselves by scrolling, or to simply step away mentally for 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're just stuck.
You combine that forced, inescapable physical presence with incredibly high-stakes social interactions. The pressure to perform the character of Brad Pitt, Hollywood golden boy, in front of Tom Cruise and Paul McCartney is immense.
Wow, yeah.
And historically for him, alcohol was the social lubricant that made that exact performance possible.
That clarifies so much. You're completely isolated in a sea of highly scrutinized people, and there is literally no escape hatch.
None.
And that's before we even talk about the visual and auditory overload they were experiencing inside this fortress. Because the craziest flex of the night wasn't just the military-grade secrecy, it was the sheer scale of the spectacle they built once you got past the metal detectors.
Exactly. The sensory environment is a massive piece of this puzzle. Like, Madison Square Garden is a gritty, legendary sports arena. It smells like stale beer and hockey ice.
Right.
But for this night, the arena was completely erased. It was transformed into a lush, peach and white indoor garden featuring sweeping staircases covered entirely in plush pink carpeting.
At MSG.
Yeah. The cognitive dissonance of walking into a sports arena and finding a botanical palace is instantly disorienting.
And the bridal party just added to that surreal, dreamlike atmosphere. I mean, you have Adam Sandler standing at the altar officiating the ceremony.
It was amazing.
Austin Swift, Taylor's brother, standing as man of honor. Jason Kelce as best man with his daughters walking down a custom-built ramp as flower girls.
So cute.
And you have both Taylor and Travis wearing custom Jonathan Anderson for Dior Haute Couture.
Oh, the outfits were incredible.
Travis is in a pristine white tux, Taylor in a white gown with a massive veiled train. I mean, comparing this to anything is hard. It's like a military Black Ops mission crashing into the Met Gala and a Super Bowl halftime show.
That is the perfect analogy. And the entertainment lineup alone was enough to overwhelm the nervous system.
Right. Who performed again?
Stevie Nicks performed. Avril Lavigne got up and sang Skater Boy to a crowd of billionaires.
Iconic. Taylor
And Travis performed a deeply personal duet. But the absolute pinnacle, the moment that Joe Buck described as a true pinch-yourself experience, was Paul McCartney stepping up to the microphone to sing I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Oh, my God.
Publicly. For the first time since 1964.
I mean, just process the historical weight of that for a second.
Yeah.
You have a Beatle performing a song he hasn't touched in public in over 60 years, specifically pulled out of the vault for this one couple.
Yeah.
It elevates the event from a mere celebrity wedding to a monolithic pop culture milestone. Every single person in that room knew they were witnessing something that could never be replicated.
But then, just to throw a wrench of bizarre chaos into all that heavy historical elegance, you have Lena Dunham. Yes. She reportedly gave a speech where she likened American football to, and this is a direct quote from the leaks, straight guys reenacting gay porn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, leaving the entire room of A-list actors and 250-pound NFL linebackers completely gasping for air.
I mean, it's such a jarring tonal shift. You go from the sacredness of a Beatles singing a 1964 classic to Lena Dunham shocking a room of athletes.
It's a little whiplash.
The sensory and emotional whiplash is off the charts. It's sensory overload on a scale that a normal human brain just isn't designed to process for 6 straight hours.
Which brings us right back to the psychology of the guests, and specifically Pitt. Sensory overload requires a release valve.
Right.
When the brain is overwhelmed by constant high-stakes spectacle, the biological urge to numb out or self-soothe spikes dramatically. Your nervous system is redlining, and it demands something to bring the baseline back down.
And that's not even the wildest part of the night, because what came next after the vows and the speeches was a display of wealth that honestly feels like a fever dream.
Oh, just wait.
But wait till you hear what came next. Because the craziest flex of the night wasn't the music, it was what happened after they said, I do, and the shocking prizes guests were walking away with.
The reception is where the concept of absolute unchecked excess really solidifies.
Yeah.
Once the ceremony ended, there was no VIP seating. The idea was that everyone was equal under the tent. But instead of a traditional seated dinner, they set up carnival-style games where guests played for raffle tickets.
And the prizes were not giant stuffed bears or plastic trinkets, people. We are talking actual Cartier watches.
Cartier watches.
Vintage Chanel bags. Someone won a pristine 1970 Chevy Chevelle, which is the exact same model car Travis and Taylor drove away in on one of their highly publicized first dates.
It's just insane. Even the catering was a chaotic collision of high-end luxury and comfort food.
What did they serve?
They had a massive buffet mixing fresh Quebec lobster, filet mignon, high-end sushi, and mountains of French fries.
French fries and lobster.
Yeah. It is the ultimate physical expression of having it all at once. without any boundaries or limitations.
And then, as if the universe itself was on the payroll, the outside world participated. The MSG marquee suddenly flashed "Just D&T Married" to the streets of New York.
A literal billboard.
And the exact moment that happened, a sudden, massive rainstorm hit Manhattan, washing the streets, instantly followed by a perfect, brilliant rainbow arching over the city. You cannot write a more perfect fairy tale ending.
You really can't. But this is where we have to ground the conversation. Because while the sky is producing literal rainbows outside, inside, human beings are still struggling.
Right.
And the clinical data regarding celebrity addiction from Lashola recovery is incredibly sobering when you look at it through the lens of an event like this.
Let's dig into that data, because I'd imagine a lot of people hear about Cartier watches and Quebec lobster and think they have millions of dollars, private chefs, the best therapists on earth. Staying sober should be easy.
Yeah, that's the common assumption.
But I'm guessing that endless access and total lack of friction is actually the trap, right? Like, without boundaries, there's nothing to stop a relapse.
That is exactly the trap. The most common public misconception is that celebrity relapse is a failure of gratitude or willpower. But fame actually amplifies the biological risk factors.
Interesting.
Generally, across the general population, 40 to 60% of people in recovery will relapse at some point. But for celebrities and high-profile individuals, a staggering 40% relapse in just their first year of recovery alone.
Wait, 40% in just the first year? Why is the failure rate so aggressively high for people who theoretically have the most resources?
It comes down to neurobiology. When a high achiever wills a massive career into existence, their brain requires massive amounts of dopamine to feel satisfied.
Okay, that makes sense.
A normal reward, like a quiet, peaceful night at home, doesn't register on their neurochemical radar. They need constant high-stakes novelty. The traits that push Taylor Swift to dominate the global music industry, or Travis Kelce to win 3 Super Bowls, or Brad Pitt to become a cinematic icon, intense drive, obsessiveness, novelty-seeking, are the exact same neurological pathways hijacked by addiction.
Oh, wow. So the very engine that drives their unprecedented success is the exact same engine that drives their addiction.
Right.
You can't separate the superstar from the addict because they use the same brain chemistry.
Exactly. And when you add the isolation of extreme fame, the endless financial access to whatever substance you want, and an environment entirely populated by yes men who are financially incentivized not to tell you no, well, traditional treatment models fall apart.
Yeah, bet.
A standard 12-step program or a quiet rehab facility isn't designed to teach a global icon how to cope with their dopamine receptors misfiring while trapped in a Madison Square Garden secret wedding.
That creates such a devastating paradox. Does the constant need to present this perfect rainbow weather fairy tale actually feed into the isolation that drives someone like Brad Pitt to relapse? You have everything, yet you feel like you have absolutely nothing.
Yes, absolutely. Pitt touched on this exact chasm when he talked about grief in the Esquire piece.
What did he say?
He said grief leaves a gaping hole, but he also called it an aching beauty. He is desperately trying to find meaning in the emptiness. And during the interview, he had this frantic realization about the passage of time. He said, God, I want my 50s back. Your 50s are just, man, anything that's on your mind, go attack it now.
That urgency is heartbreaking. He's in his 60s now, looking back at a decade that was entirely consumed by a brutal public divorce, painful family estrangement, and the exhausting daily grind of trying to stay sober. And he just wants a do-over. He wants the time back.
And when you feel that profound level of personal regret, while simultaneously attending an event that celebrates the absolute peak of romantic, financial, and cultural triumph for another couple, the contrast is agonizing.
Yeah, that's heavy.
You are watching a flawless fairy tale unfold while privately living a tragedy. It makes the cold steel of the bullet or the warm, familiar burn of a drink look like the only accessible escape routes from your own mind.
It completely changes how you look at paparazzi photos of celebrities looking glamorous at these exclusive events.
It really does.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next on our future deep dives. We're always trying to look beneath that surface.
Yeah, because it demands a massive shift in our public empathy. Addiction doesn't care if you're wearing custom Dior. It is a chronic, relapsing brain disorder, and it requires ongoing, imperfect management regardless of your tax bracket.
So to bring this all together, I keep going back to one specific profound quote from Brad Pitt's interview, and I want to connect it directly back to the Swift-Kelce wedding.
Okay, let's hear it.
Pitt told Esquire that the real road to waking up is, and I quote, letting go of all control, that belief about the way things should be, trying to hammer and tong it into some kind of shape, which is impossible.
Letting go of all control. That's powerful.
Think about that concept in the context of what we just discussed. Look at the sheer iron-fisted control required to pull off that wedding. 4 months of encrypted secret texts, NDAs, firing employees on the spot, mandatory GPS driving routes, confiscating smartwatches from the police. It was an absolute masterpiece of control.
It was.
But in a Hollywood culture that is fundamentally obsessed with micromanaging every single narrative, curating flawless aesthetics, and hammering messy reality into a perfect fairy tale shape, is Brad Pitt right?
It's the defining question of modern celebrity culture.
Is the refusal to let go of control the very thing keeping our biggest stars trapped in their own pain? When you squeeze your life and your image that tightly, something eventually has to break.
Always.
Sometimes it's a PR headline, sometimes it's a marriage, and sometimes it's a 7-year sobriety chip.
It's a fascinating contradiction to leave on. We, as the public, crave the visible, the categorized, the perfect picture with the rainbow at the end. But underneath that curated surface, the reality is always muddy waters.
You've been listening to StarScope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.